Joe Richardson, how you doing? I'm here talking about sprains, strains, and fractures. I have the Herculean task of making the law interesting. So, in order to do that, I think you have to story tell a little bit and to use some examples that make it real. So, that's where the title comes from: sprains, strains, and fractures. Most of us have dealt with having a sprain or a strain or a fracture. Because I'm a Merriam Webster's person, here are the actual definitions. A sprain is a sudden or violent twist or wrench of a joint with stretching or tearing of ligaments. A strain, strain, is to injure a body part or muscle by too much tension, use, or effort. Or a fracture is the art or process of breaking, the state of being broken, or the breaking of hard tissue. I actually broke this finger once. It looks like a cobra. The first day of sixth grade, and it looked like 10 minutes until 6 o'clock. But when it happened, I didn't feel a thing. A basketball came down on it and it knocked it right out of place. That was a fracture. It was clearly a fracture, but it didn't hurt a bit. So here's a dramatic irony. I like to use dramatic ironies because my English teacher always told me every story has a dramatic irony. It seems this way, but it's actually this way. Here's a dramatic irony. Sprains and strains still do damage, and maybe even more damage than a fracture, because among other things, you feel them more. Think about that in the context of the law. Okay. So often, we talk about the law on hazing and all these other things. And our goal is to keep from breaking the law, right? And that's not a bad goal. But there's almost like this feeling that you can say, na 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 na, if you didn't break the law. But if you strained it, if you stretched it, if you did things to it where you toed the line, I don't necessarily think that you ought to get a medal just because you didn't technically break it, you didn't technically get in trouble, or you didn't technically go to jail. Now, as it pertains to the law itself, there's been a hazing death pretty much every year since 1961, and there has been some criminal liability related to that. Often it's because of negligence or something that is not necessarily intentional, but is still serious because it made a negative consequence. Sometimes it cost someone's life or whatever else. And different states deal with it differently. Some states deal with it in the education code. Some states, to make it more serious seeming, put it in the penal code. In other words, penalize. So but as it pertains to criminal wrong, we have that there, but we also have civil wrong. A lot of times you've heard it in the context of negligence. You have a duty to do something, you breach that duty, and then it causes some damage. Now, anybody that's watched, Judge Judy would know about that. But there's criminal wrong and there's civil wrong. But what I really want you to take from this is the dramatic irony that the goal of just keeping from being criminally or civilly liable is not the ideal goal that you absolutely want, because you can still look bad, you can still feel bad, and you can still mess up a situation, mess up someone's life, mess up someone's college career. Okay. Now, let me talk a little bit about going from civil wrong. I just talked about the elements of negligence. Those of you that are thinking about law school, I can talk you out of it some other time. Joke, joke. But there's elements to each principle, elements to negligence, duty, breach, causation, damage. On the civil side, so sometimes even when someone is not criminally prosecuted, there is a civil lawsuit. Okay. Now, think about it from an ethics standpoint, though. Let's move from law to ethics. Ethics are about what's right. They're a they're a set of moral values. We hear that quite a bit. Some of us think religion when we think of that type of thing. No, we don't. As a matter of fact, if you think about it, we make ethical decisions all the time. Your best friend, the state of being your best friend and what they do, what someone does to be your best friend or to be valued or to be thought of highly in your life, is going above and beyond. They don't look at the law. I've known my best friend for 30 years, and he has yet to ask me about the penal code. Right? So let's think about it from an ethical standpoint. What duty do you have to your group, to yourself, to your fraternity, to your world, to your campus community, to your world at large? How do you breach it? And what damage do you actually do? This is my other dramatic irony that I'll give you for now. the idea that often Greek groups look to do what is legally right, but what they ought to be doing is looking at what's ethically right. Because if you look at what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, we make ethical decisions all the time. Here are a couple related things, by the way. BTWIJS. Look at what you put on social media because people make judgments about you based on what you put on social media, particularly people that you don't talk to. Many of us follow people and we follow them, they follow us, but you don't talk. So we look at what you do and we make ethical judgments. If there's anyone in your Greek group that you know you would hang out with, but you already know you wouldn't hire, that's an ethical judgment. Nobody's going to jail, but you're looking at what they do and don't do, and you're making decisions about that. So, what you have to do is remember that we value ethics in our lives, and we have to move as Greek groups from what is legally required to what is ethically desired. What is the right thing to do here? Even if we don't know what the right thing to do is, we know that we need to look for the right thing to do. Why? Because if we do the right thing ethically, it helps us to make what's legal. We can hit that out of the park. It makes it easy to follow the law when you're following ethics. Look no further than all of your own codes of conduct for your Greek groups, even for your campus university. Look for what is right to do. Now, once you find what's right, do what you need to do to create the culture and to have that expectation and to have that expectation that not only you put to yourselves and everyone else in your group, but to everyone else coming in. You can't create a culture of doing what's right midway. So do what it is that you need to do. Look at what's legally required and go past that to go what's ethically desired. And now you'll find yourself hitting your life and your future out of the park.